So just go on. Within the timeless realm. My clock is busted after all this time. Uh-oh. Even from here I can see there's lots of questions in that. Oh dear. Look at them. Goodness gracious. Okay. So these ones have got bad karma. Isn't that a good idea? Regarding awareness and kindness, please elaborate on kindness. On kindness is okay, being kind to the questions. I'll put one more in. The awareness. When you're aware of something, how much do we reject of what we're aware of, what we're focusing on? Because we think, oh, it's not important, or we don't want to, we don't like to. When we're kind, we allow things to come in. So we can look at them, understand them, and then we let them go. The simile of kindness, which I've told many times, is that simile of saying to whatever you're going to be aware of, whatever you're experiencing, the door of my heart is open to you. When you open the door of your heart to something, you allow it to come in. And then when it comes in, you can spend time with it to really understand it. But sometimes people always feel that if they open the door of their heart, what's going to come in? And the trick is, yes, please keep the door of your heart open, but keep it open, because doors are to come in and to go out. And after a while, you'll find that what you allow in will eventually disappear. Or the simile of Ajahn Brahm taught me. He said, that later on in your life as a monk, even you love to be sort of secluded and renounced and live in caves on top of mountains. Nevertheless, eventually people come and ask you questions, and you become some kind of counselor. You become some kind of therapist. People keep on asking you questions. But he said the trick is always to imagine you're a dustbin. That's what it's like, being a monk, being a dustbin. So people come and put all their rubbish in you. Like about marriage, relationships, jobs. I became a monk to escape from all of that. Now you're putting all that rubbish inside of me? But he said that's out of the kindness. Open the door of your heart. Be mindful, be kind. But you also have to be kind to oneself as well. How can you do that? And that's when he gave the wonderful saying that if you're going to be a dustbin in your life, and any one of you is going to be dustbins, sometimes your partner keeps on dumping on you, sometimes it's your boss dumps on you, it's your kids dump on you, they're always dumping on you. Make sure you're a dustbin with a hole in the bottom. I love that simile. And sometimes during the question time, the interview time, sometimes sitting on that seat, I don't know if you can actually read my mind. Yeah, I'm accepting everything you say, but I've got a hole in the bottom. So when I get out from that seat, I don't take it into the cottage and meditate on it. I leave it right there in the interview area. If you actually go there in the afternoon or in the morning after the interviews, I would smell, it's terrible. But I like that idea, because what happens in human beings, we keep collecting problems. And we collect problems, and after a while it wears us down. So in the moment, you give your answers, you help as much as you can, and then you let it go. Allow it in, be kind, and then let go. I've got a story of a kind person's life who knows how to listen to others. Make sense? That's why you survive, because so it's the last thing you ever expect when you're a monk. People keep asking questions on stuff you don't know. But anyway, you still make an answer. See what happens. That's why I was very happy this morning. Very happy that it wasn't recorded, the talk. I don't have to worry about letters from people or from lawyers. It was offline. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the person who left the recording off. It was a wonderful gift you gave to me. Thank you, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Well, do you want to collect everything, all the recordings? Do you think that was a really good talk this morning? I want to hear that one again. Of course not. That's just like we try to keep things and collect things. There was a story that, my father had died. She let me go all the way to Thailand to be a monk. And so after 7 years in Thailand, I thought I should go and visit her. And when I went to go and visit her, one of the disciples here said, well, you're going to visit, you must give her a present. And so the present they got for me to give to my mother was like a stuffed kangaroo, a little kangaroo. And so, number one, it was kind of soft. And number two, it was Australian. So if my mother missed me, she could have a look at the kangaroo on the ledge in the main room of her apartment. So I gave her this little kangaroo. The next time I went to visit her was 6 years later, and this time he gave her a koala bear. And after a koala bear, when I went to visit her next time, we gave her, I think it was a kookaburra. And after giving her a kookaburra, the year after, I can forget what the next one was. But anyway, eventually we got to a wombat. And wombats are really big. And so I presented with a wombat a gift from her son, now a monk. And she couldn't put that on the ledge of the front room where she would live. There was no more space. So she tried to balance it on there and it kept falling off. And I told her, look, this is a new wombat. Why don't you throw away the other ones which I gave you? Then there's room for the new one. She said, no. This reminds me of you. Really, all that stuff, I don't have hardly anything. Just throw one out. I said, no. And so she kept on trying to balance it. And that was a wonderful simile of what we do when we collect too much stuff. Too many memories, good and bad. So our poor head is stuffed with memories, which means that we get headaches, we can't be free. And sometimes it's nice to remember that simile of being a rubbish bin with a hole in the bottom, so it's always empty for the next person who comes and asks a deep question. It's never full. And you feel much more free. So that's why kindness is kindness to make sure you're always open, free, so people can talk with you. And you never keep anything. As soon as you go up, that's all left behind. Does that make sense? That's why I sometimes say, what was I just talking about? It's already gone through me, through the hole in the bottom of my waste bin. Is that true? Okay, next question. That's awareness and kindness. That's being kind and aware. If you're just aware, you're just like a robot. That's the difference between artificial intelligence and real intelligence. It has a beautiful kindness there. Can you have artificial kindness? If somebody started inventing AK, artificial kindness, then I get worried. But if it was real artificial kindness, the way I would check it to make sure that machine turned itself off, being kind to me. Anyway, dear Ajahn, I think the Buddha put importance on friends' company like this. If you meet somebody who's superior to you, follow them. If not, go by yourself. That's what the Buddha actually said. But how do you know they're superior to you? Should you give all your friends an interview, a questionnaire first of all, and then send it off somewhere to be analysed, and then find out exactly what level they're in? By the time it gets analysed, you're broke, because it costs a lot of money to send this stuff to psychologists and to get it analysed properly. And also by that time, they've gone somewhere else. So the best thing to do, it doesn't matter who it is, give them kindness. And if you receive kindness and you're still there in the room, they're still in the room, fine. But the best Kalyana Mitta, as I already mentioned to you, is a person right in front of you, whoever they happen to be. To be able to walk through life treating everybody who's right in front of you the same. Be kind to them. Care for them. The most important person in the world is the one right in front of you. And in that story by Leo Tolstoy, eventually the person right in front of the king, who was the most important, and what he based the story on, was a small boy. And the small boy saved his life by telling him there was a wild elephant or something endangering people. A lot of times we don't listen to little people. They're insignificant, not important. And I remember that in my university years. Sometimes I had an important question. I went up to the lecturer to try and ask it. And you realise they weren't paying much attention to me. They were trying to get rid of me. They had other things to do. I was not important. Have I ever done that to you? If I have, I apologise deeply, because I've vowed, because of the own experience, you have a question to ask. And you want to make sure that I give you that respect and answer it the best I can. If I am busy, then I'll just let you know, please come and ask me another time. And I mean that, I'm not trying to get rid of you. Because when people try to get rid of you, that was really just disrespectful. It doesn't matter who you are, I may be the wisest person in the world, but then that means that I respect even who I look at first of all and think is the stupidest person in the world. You respect the questioner and respect the question. It's one also of the reasons why when you do ask me questions, I will answer those as best I possibly can. I might give a bad answer, but I just try my best. That's respect. And I don't know if you remember, there was this teacher a long time ago called Krishnamurti. I remember listening to one of his lectures. It was recorded, I think, New York Library. And then I was really bored, because he didn't say anything new or novel, convincing or helpful. But then, at the question time, somebody put up their hand and asked a question. I thought, wow, this is a really good question. I wonder how this Krishnamurti is going to answer this. And as I was really focusing and listening, he said in a gruff voice, "Do I have to answer every question?" And everybody laughed. Except where I was sitting, I thought, he's just trying to get out of answering the first good question which has been asked this evening. Everybody laughed and he just moved on. And I thought that was not fair. That was disrespectful. Doesn't matter who you are. I'd always try to answer your question, honestly. And if I don't, please ask it again. And that's the reason why there's so many pieces of paper in this box. And that is your Kalyana Mitta, the person right in front of you right now. You're kind to them. Treat everybody equal. Dear Ajahn, when retreatants indulge, e.g. sleeping, showering, aircon, heater, non-stop, are we creating bad karma, which then hinders our meditation practices? The reason why we call it karma is because your intention. What's the purpose behind this? And then sometimes we don't even know that purpose. And so it's really difficult, almost impossible, for me to actually to criticize anyone and say that's bad karma, you shouldn't do that. Instead, you have trust. Trust, you're all grown human beings, and I trust you to use whatever we have in this Jhana Grove Retreat Center wisely, appropriately. Even the food. I'm not going to actually look at what food we have in the pantry tonight and check it again in the morning. And if there's any discrepancy, I'll frisk you. No way you do stuff like that. Even though I do joke sometimes. Sometimes my jokes get me into trouble, fair enough. That sometimes in the Dharna hall in Bodhinyana Monastery, somebody takes my bowl and brings it upstairs for me. That is a sacrifice, honestly. Because many, many times, you've got something, not some soup, but some sweets. One good example, ice cream. You have ice cream in a little bowl, you put it in my arms bowl, put the lid on, you take it upstairs. When it gets upstairs, I take the lid off, and the ice cream is all tipped over, and it's all melted into the curry. I remember one of the meals I had once, it was spaghetti, and strawberry ice cream was tipped on top of it. If it's your own meal, you're really careful. If somebody else takes your bowl upstairs, sometimes they're not so careful. Have you ever eaten strawberry ice cream on spaghetti? Why did you go, ugh? You don't know. It was disgusting. It's only just for one day. So we try to not indulge, but to do things which we know we're going to be okay for our digestion. And that's something else which always interested me in monastic life. There was one monastery over in Japan, a Heiji monastery. It was run by this quite famous teacher in the 12th century, Dogen. And he was very fierce. And that monastery, there was documentaries about that monastery even today. Really fierce. You had to get up, I think, at 3 o'clock in the morning. And to wash, it was almost 0 degrees. So no one could actually take a shower. Just put a bit of water on your face and dry it off as soon as you can. And you had to work very hard. And the one thing which was always soft, you might say indulgent, was the food. And I remember even reading about Dogen Senji. He said, every monastery should make sure they have good meals. And I thought, why is that? They have to be delicious meals. Why? Wouldn't it be good to teach you to endure by having disgusting meals, especially meals you just do not like? Would that be a good idea? You find if you have meals which you don't like, you do get indigestion. This is obvious. When you eat, if it's something delicious and tasty, saliva comes out of your mouth to digest the food. And all these other stuff which is in your digestive system, they will only come out just when you enjoy your food. I noticed one of these monks told me this story. He went into the hospital in Ubon because he was getting quite sick, And one of those sicknesses was his digestion was terrible. And so the doctors wanted to test out his digestion. So they said, can we give you some food, just to get a bit of saliva going and other things, to see if it all comes out properly. And then he said, well look, it's in the afternoon. I'm not supposed to eat in the afternoon. I said, oh yeah, okay. So then they said, think about your favourite food. And that's all he needed to do. Once he started thinking about his favourite food, they had some CT scanner on his tummy, and then all this digestive juices started coming out. He said he needed to do that. And it's something, of course that happens. If you think of your favourite food right now, close your eyes and do the meditation on your favourite food. Does saliva come out of your mouth? At least it starts to be secreted. That's just the nature of our body. And if you need to digest that food, you do need those juices. So that's what Dogen noticed. It's not indulgence. It's just so you can digest whatever food you put in your mouth and actually live well. I don't mean indulgent, but healthy. Sometimes I ate lots of sticky rice and lots of rotten fish curry, but I never put on weight. I never digested it. And you have something which you do like, or you are used to, and the saliva comes out, of course you digest it. So to keep monks, nuns healthy, to keep yourself healthy, make sure that when you give food, it's food which just has the effect of getting saliva and bile and all this other stuff which comes out of your body to digest the food. You have a much better digestion. It's because of that, whenever you go to Bodhinyana monastery, you can see such a wide variety of food for all the different nationalities who come and stay there. Otherwise, some of the food you can eat it, if it doesn't taste nice, you can't digest it. It doesn't secrete all these fluids which you need. So sometimes you have to be careful what is indulgence and what is what's needed. Sometimes nuns and monks get sick. And when they're sick, you want to make sure that they have a comfortable place to stay to get better. Not all monks and nuns are the same. Not all lay people are the same. So when we have other facilities which are more comfortable, it makes my job much easier. I don't know how many times, so the car's busy today, he's taken someone into hospital. And one of the things for each one of you, for your health, when you meditate a lot, this happens on retreats, many times people don't drink enough, they don't hydrate enough. The reason for that is, if you drink too much water or juice or whatever, you feel you need to go to the toilet a lot. When you go to the toilet a lot, it means you have to interrupt the meditation. And I think I mentioned this one lady did a 3-month retreat here, and one day we had to take her to hospital. She thought she had a heart attack or a stroke or something. And at the hospital they did all the checks and said, this is not a heart attack or a stroke. You haven't been drinking enough water. You're dehydrated. And that's why. We don't want to be disturbed when we're meditating by having to go to the toilet. And that's all it was. It makes so much sense. You're kind to your body. And that's all one needs to do. Present moment awareness. How close is present moment awareness to reality? Present moment awareness is the only reality. close as you can get. Do you remember the past? Truthfully? Sometimes I've had great arguments with my brother about what really happened when we were young. He said he went to the Royal Albert Hall to sit on Queen Elizabeth's chair, because my grandfather was doing some work in there. And I'm sure it was me. No, it was me, no, it was me. What we're doing, the past is truthful, is reliant on what we think should have happened, never what really did happen. That's why there's so many arguments about what happened in the past. And I still remember this article somebody said to me about this child psychologist over in United States, in Canada, sorry, and he was about to retire, and he had all of the details about the interviews and projects which he did as a young psychologist. And one of those projects was, seeing the effect of corporal punishment on the kids. And so he asked all the kids, about 40, 50 years ago, or I don't know exactly what, but a long time ago, number one, which of your parents loved you more? Which was the cruelest? Which was the kindest? What did you like about them? What did you do? And you had some black and white questions. Did your mother beat you? Or did your father punish you? And he had all of those, and he tried to contact as many of those kids as possible, now they were grown up, and ask them the same questions to see whether they could really remember the past. It happened to them. And when he compared their answers, I think 30 years after it happened, they were almost all different. And they said this really happened. They could feel it. But then they said it did happen or it didn't happen, the opposite. He was saying that's what happens with memory. The further in the past it is, the more unreliable. And I remember in this article they said even police understand that. What was the colour of the car, which crashed into another one? You always get it wrong. You imagine what should have happened, what actually did happen. And because of that, the past memories are very unreliable. And because of that, it's a waste of time relying on them. There's many psychologists here. Have you ever heard that? That's the past. It's basically a waste of time thinking about it or trying to remember it. And we always think that the past actually happened. I was there at the time, I should know. The further away it is, the less reliable. And then we get to the future. Why do you get worried about the future? That's even less reliable. We don't know what's going to happen. How many of you thought you'd be spending today in a retreat center with a Buddhist monk, about 1 year ago? 1 year ago, did you ever think you're going to be here today? Exactly, so we cannot plan the future. We don't know what's going to happen. It always makes the future exciting, interesting, unpredictable. So unpredictable you don't need to worry about it. And I remember even those people you go to counsel, and these are people who are dying. And they get so worried, about their cancer. It's the worry that kills them. Because I've seen so many people with cancer, they get better. It's one of the reasons why. It's one of those Nasruddin stories. He was always cracking jokes, I don't know why it is. Ajahn Chah would crack jokes. And many of these religious people, they get into trouble because of that. Just like me. That's why I was very happy that the talk this morning, there's a lot of jokes and funny stories in there, but it wasn't recording. I'm safe. But eventually, this poor Nasruddin, somebody said that what he said was against Islam, and the Sultan or the Shah, whatever it was, had no choice but to convict him, and the penalty was death, execution. And Nasruddin told the Shah, "Oh, it's such a shame that you're going to execute me, because I just managed to discover this means of making your wife, the Sultana, whatever she was called, more beautiful and more compliant. It's a special sort of ceremony." And the Sultan, "You can make my wife more beautiful and compliant?" "Oh yeah. It's taken me many years to work on this. But yeah, I can do that." And then he said, "Well, I'm going to execute you." And he said, "Oh yeah, it's a shame, but nevertheless." And so what the Sultan or the Shah did, he said, "Okay, look, this is the deal. I'll give you 1 year of amnesty. 1 year of not killing you. But if after 1 year my wife is not more beautiful and not more compliant, I'm going to execute you even more painfully." And Nasruddin said, "Okay." And then afterwards, his friends said, "We never knew you could do that. You can make her more beautiful and more compliant." And he said, "I can't. No one can do that." "Why did you say it?" And he replied, "In 1 year, so many things happen. There could be a coup. There could be a revolution. The Shah could be kicked out. Or I might die. You don't know what might happen in the future. Therefore, at least I get another 12 months of fun and freedom and happiness." When I read that story, I don't know what you can do, what you can't do. But nevertheless, if you tell somebody that, it's possible, who knows? You get an extra 12 months of life. Is that a good idea? But don't say that to your wife or your partner. Say, "Look, I'm already compliant, I'm already beautiful, aren't I, darling?" She might execute you. But that was actually understanding the future is uncertain. So why try to predict it so much? Don't worry about it. Can I use a walking meditation? Can I use a walking meditation, noticing sensations in my feet, as my only daily meditation practice, i.e. half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening? Can this replace a sitting or breath-focused meditation completely? Oh yeah, it's really good. What do you mean replace it? It's excellent, but you've got to be careful where you do the walking meditation. Naturally, you go slowly. And I still remember stories of people doing walking meditation slowly, out in the open, when people saw them. One of those occasions was at Chithurst Monastery. They didn't really have much space there to do the walking meditation, but there was one of their disciples. One of the disciples was a psychiatrist, but she loved doing meditation and doing retreats. And the people in the village where she lived knew that she was working in the mental hospital just close by. But she also had a big house. And so it was wonderful for doing the walking meditation in the garden outside and the sitting meditation inside. This was in an English village. And so when it came to the Saturday walking meditation time, she had all her disciples out in the garden doing the walking meditation, being so mindful of their feet moving up, moving forward, not speaking. And they were meditating so slowly. Now, in English villages, you know this, in English villages, you have these old ladies who open the curtains and they have a peek. And one of these ladies, saw all these people walking really strangely in the garden, really slowly. And she knew that house was owned by this woman who was a head psychiatrist in one of the mental hospitals close by. About 20 minutes later, the police arrived. She rang up the police to complain that so many of the patients in the mental hospital had escaped and were now walking in the garden of this psychiatrist's house. It was logical. And so the police rounded them up to take them back to the hospital. They went, "No, we're not patients, we're just meditators." And of course, a crazy person would say that. So it took a lot of argument to convince the police these were real, sane people and not to put them back in the mental hospital. And a similar thing happened here, believe it or not. It wasn't one of my retreats. I warn people if they do walking meditation outside. This was one of those Vipassana retreats. And so there's about 20 or 30 people doing walking meditation outside. And they were, because it was like mostly Sri Lankan, they were wearing white. That's what people tend to wear, when they go to a monastery and join a retreat and keep precepts. They're wearing all white clothes. And another Sri Lankan family, they came to Bodhinyana Monastery, and one of them asked, "Is it okay if I just go and have a look at your retreat center?" I said, "Yeah, of course. But don't disturb anybody." I didn't know what the schedule was and what the retreatants were doing at this time. But about 20 minutes later, their car came back to Bodhinyana Monastery and their son came out. Ajahn Brahm, Ajahn Brahm, your retreat center has been invaded by zombies. There was a time apparently when the zombie movies were really popular. A couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago or something. But anyway, apparently zombies, they always walk really slowly. And to this day, whenever you see people doing that slow type of meditation, I call it zombie meditation. Sometimes people don't understand what you're doing because it looks very strange. But anyway, that now, again, just so if you're coming in here, please do the meditation in the halls here so other people can't see you. Because if they do it outside on a nice sunny afternoon, you might get the police car come and you end up in Greylands. Greylands? Is that the closest, or Bentley? These are the local mental hospitals for people who have some emotional difficulties. The police and the other people don't understand what you're up to. Is that true? Anyway, I thought it was quite a funny story. That's why I keep telling the funny stories. Regarding the cycle of death and rebirth, I understand that our karma continues. If a person creates a lot of good karma, they will eventually become a monastic. What will they become? Because, karma eventually ripens your future life. Will they become a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni? Which requires the most good karma? You don't know, or is it because you're trying to avoid getting into trouble? Bhikkhunis, you think that takes more karma? It means that they're behind. You know why I told this? He's struggling. Okay, this is one story I love telling. That, and some of you may know this Sri Lankan gentleman over here in Perth. I'm just making sure he's not in the back somewhere. Actually, his son died unexpectedly. They found out he had a congenital heart defect. But actually the story I was going to tell was of this Thai couple. And just when I first came here to Perth, she was pregnant, her first kid, and just a few days, actually a day probably before she gave birth, the baby turned in her womb and it cut off the blood supply in the umbilical cord. So the baby was stillborn. His name was Charlie, they gave it the name, and it was like a fully formed baby. It was just kind of an accident, it was just bad luck. But I did the funeral ceremony for them, and even they had the baby lent up in a coffin so you could have a family photograph. And I was close to the family, that I was included in that family photograph. So at least Charlie got into the family photograph. But then she was a healthy woman, so she soon became pregnant again. And this time, she told me that the doctors gave her really VIP treatment. They didn't want her to have the same bad luck again. This time, there was no problem. She gave birth to a healthy kid, and this time happened to be a son. No, a daughter this time. Before it was Charlie, male, and the next time it was female, named Anne. And I know these details because I was there at the time. I know all of this, and it's a great story. But at the funeral service of Charlie, before it was Charlie was cremated, they took a pen and they drew a little line in the blue ink on the baby's heel. Because the idea was that if it was going to be reborn as their kid, they could notice it was their kid because it would have that as a birthmark. And when Anne was born, it's got a lovely birthmark there, exactly where they drew it. Because that's very likely. If a mum gets pregnant and has a kid and it doesn't make it just straight away, it will try again. And that was kind of proof of that. It come back again. And because they were strong supporters of Bodhinyana Monastery and Dhammaloka Center, they would go to the temple often. So you could see, Anne grow up. And she really was a tomboy. She'd get angry at the girls she would play with, and she preferred being with the boys. Until she was about 7, 8, 9 or something. And then she was more true to her gender. She became more female. So the question I ask you, it's just like when you go to the airport and you get bumped off the flight. What does the airline usually do for you? They book you on the next available flight, and if possible, they give you an upgrade. So was Anne given an upgrade after she got bumped off the flight as Charlie? I see all the ladies banging their head, all the guys looking, oh. But anyway, that was a true story. The idea of an upgrade was something which I added to that. And it's lovely to be able to, you see that, it's true, and to tell other people, other women who have the bad luck of a miscarriage. Never give up. Just, you got the corpse there, get a little pen and draw a line. On the heel, it's very rare to have a birthmark on the heel. So I haven't got one. I wasn't a girl before. But anyway, then you can actually prove that rebirth actually happens. Do you believe in reincarnation? You may not in this life, but you certainly will in your next. Okay. If they create a lot of good karma, will they eventually become a monastic? And is it through the monastic life a person becomes enlightened? Can you become enlightened without becoming a monk or a nun? You can. Can you walk from Perth to Sydney? Yes, you can. But I would recommend you take a flight. It's much more convenient, and they're not that expensive. And that's the usual answer. I would recommend, if you're really serious to get enlightened, become a member of the Sangha. That's why it was designed, to take people to enlightenment by the Buddha. So look after yourself, be convenient. Sangha is here. It's not that expensive to join the Sangha. And once you get enlightened, then you don't need to be a member of the Sangha if you don't like it. Of course, once you're enlightened, you see the benefits. It's a wonderful life. Okay. Can a monastic have bad karma and go backwards? Of course they can. Devadatta did. But even if they go backwards, sometimes they're smart enough, they know how to go forward again. Do you know how to go forward? The best way of making good karma to go forward is the kindness. And there's some of these wonderful stories of people who, even they got reborn in the hell realm. And they were so kind that basically you have just even one moment or a few moments of kindness and you can't stay in the hell realm anymore. Okay, this story, if you're really Buddhist, you may object to it, but it's like a metaphorical story. So once upon a time, this Christian was kind of doubtful. So it says in the Bible you have to believe in Jesus to go to heaven. But there were so many good people through history. You know, people like the Buddha, like Marcus Aurelius, like Mahatma Gandhi, like, who's other good people in the world? Oh, come on. He said, what happened to them? Surely you can't send people like Nelson Mandela into a hell realm because he didn't believe in Jesus. So what happens to them? And so this man, there was a really important question for him, and he was a bit of a philosopher as well. He went to see his priest on a Monday, actually not a Monday morning, because Monday mornings they have a day off work, on a Tuesday. And the priest said, that's a really difficult question. So, I'll let you know tomorrow. So he went to see one of the senior priests, and the senior priest said, that's a very fantastic question, but I need some more advice, so come and see me the next day. And so he went to go and see the bishop. And the bishop said, now that's a really powerful question. I go and see the archbishop. And then the archbishop the next day said, oh, I can't answer that question. I go and see a theologian, a professor at university. And the theologian gave an answer, but no one can understand it. So it came to Saturday night. And this person just thought, I haven't got an answer from all these so-called experts. What should I do? And so he went to his church early in the morning. Because he was worrying and thinking too much, he fell asleep at the altar. When he fell asleep, he had this dream. As he was dreaming, it was one of these like lucid dreams. He felt he was at a railway station, and there was a train about to leave. And he saw, and he went onto the train and said, where's this train going to? It wouldn't be going to a place called heaven, would it? And the conductor said, yes, please jump on. So he went on his train, and after a short time, it came into this station as it started to slow down. And he could see written on the side of the station the word H-E-A-V-E-N. And when he got off, people were very kind to him. But then he went up to one person and said, is this really heaven here? He said, yes, welcome. And he said, how long have you been here? And the man said, 1,000 years or more. He said, oh really? Is there anyone up here called Marcus Aurelius? Never heard of him. Anyone up here like Nelson Mandela? A little Asian guy? Yeah. Nelson Mandela, yeah. Asian guy, Indian? No. Anyone here called Mahatma Gandhi? No. Anyone here called the Buddha? No. And he thought, I've got my answer. The Bible's right. So he left. There's another train there on the station platform. He jumped on that. Are you shocked I talk like this? See what the punchline is. It's not a funny punchline, it's a very powerful punchline. Then he went to the station. There was another train at the station platform. He jumped on that and said, where's this train going? It wouldn't be going to a place called hell, would it? He said, yes, you can jump on. He said, I'll just buy a return ticket first. And after a very short time, it arrived at this station, and you could see there the sign on the station, H-E-double-L. But the strange thing was there was balloons on that sign. And when he came, when the train stopped and he got off, he didn't have to look for anybody. Someone came up to him straight away, with a cup of tea, a really nice tea with tinkiri. Tinkiri is condensed milk, by the way. And they said, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. You must be very tired after your journey. Have a sit down, have a cup of tea. And then he said, oh, okay, hold on a moment. What's the name of this place? It's called hell. Thank you for coming here. You must be very... We'll sit down, we'll arrange a nice meal for you later. What type of food do you like? They were really incredibly kind. And then he asked this question, is anybody up here called Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi? Oh yeah, he just came up here about 20, 30, 40 years ago. A wonderful wise man. He sacrifices everything for other people. What about Nelson Mandela? Oh yeah, he's amazing. And then they asked, what about the Buddha? Oh, the Buddha. Oh. And then they asked him, said, we always wondered, where these great people would go to. And you mean the Buddha's down in hell? Oh yeah, he's an amazing person. And they said, well, our scriptures say that we would go down here, but scriptures also said that hell was a terrible place to stay in. And the person who welcomed this person said, it used to be like that before the Buddha came down here, and Marcus Aurelius and Gandhi. Do you understand the meaning of that story? Is it the place makes a person, or is it the person makes the place? The person makes the place. Which means, whatever karma you have done, it's not a punishment. It's a reminder. And wherever you go in life, you can... That's not a legitimate story, so don't try and pick holes in it. There's so many holes in there, I'm surprised it even can stand over so many years. But it was so wonderful that it taught you that wherever you go in life, it's what you make of it, what you do with it, makes it a heaven realm or a hell realm. And if a Buddha or an Ajahn Brahm went to any of these lower realms, they would soon sort it out and make it a beautiful place to be. Do you get the message there? So don't be critical of that story and to say, well, the sutta says this and the sutta says that. You're supposed to be a Buddhist monk and you tell stories like that. I hope you can understand its meaning. Can you please explain the connection between consciousness and nama-rupa. I say name and form, no one knows what that means. The consciousness and nama-rupa, one of the important things, and I'm now going to quote suttas, so you can have more trust in me. The consciousness and nama-rupa. To have consciousness, you need something to be conscious of. Without the objects of consciousness, consciousness doesn't exist, it ceases. This is basically dependent origination. Vijnana paccaya nama-rupa. And when vijnana ceases, nama-rupa ceases. And that's what you can experience in meditation. There are 6 types of consciousness. That's one of the reasons why I very rarely translate vijnana as consciousness. I translate vijnana as consciousnesses. It's valid translation, but it also means that when one consciousness is active, the other ones are just not there. They're ceased for a while. They come up afterwards. And that's one of the things you experience in deep meditation. You have sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. When they disappear, they stop for a little while. You have mind consciousness, that's very active, and that is there, the others have stopped. Which one is you? And that's a question which starts to make you to doubt that any of those consciousnesses is yourself, is your permanent essence. That's who you really are. And it doesn't just stop for a short time, it stops for hours. In those jhanas, they don't just come and go, they stop for a long period of time. This is where you understand also that the mind consciousness, if the nama-rupa stops, the nama, that's the object of the mind, so does mind consciousness. That's what happens in the arupa meditations. The object disappears. And so the mind consciousness stops. What are those stages in the arupas? The first arupa is, let's say, infinite space. The next one, infinite consciousness. All that is just the objects of the mind. Space and consciousness itself. And then what happens when they disappear? The third of those arupas is nothingness. There's nothing there. They're gone. When the objects of consciousness vanish, the consciousness starts to disappear. And what's the next one after nothingness? Neither perception nor non-perception. And what's happening there is what you're aware of, that your perception has ceased. You perceive that it's ceased. So you're on this state which is almost cessation, but just the last tiny bit is left. And after that, the fourth of those arupas is full cessation. Everything stops. And the Buddha was saying, anyone who can experience that cessation of perception and consciousness, when they come out of that, they're either a non-returner or fully enlightened. There's only 2 options. You've seen your knowing, the mind consciousness, cease. You never take that as to be the home of yourself. It stops. Am I saying these things too late and you're all too tired to really comprehend it? I don't mind. You know why I don't mind? If you don't understand it? The reason is because once it's been said, it kind of becomes a seed in your mind. That's how Ajahn Chah taught me. I never understood most of what he said when I was a young monk, but I always remembered it. And later on, when it did become important, you could actually penetrate and see through, because the seed had been planted. Now you just needed the stillness, and the two coming together, form the experiences of enlightenment. How many times have you heard that? Knowing ceases? I never thought that was possible until you hear it from a teacher you respect, and later on you get so close in the meditation, you actually see it, and then you accept it. In the fourth jhana, does the heart also stop, as well as the breath? Yes. There was this guy, this was a layperson. Some of these laypersons, they really get into this meditation. And this guy, the reason he got into the deep meditations, he had very chronic pain in his back. Extreme. And the pain clinic in Perth was in Osborne Park Hospital. And he was a regular in there. And he once told me that in order for a person to communicate to their friends, loved ones, the people they work with, how they're really feeling, and they're not sort of exaggerating, how many people tell you they're hurting, they're in pain? Is it real big pain or small pain or middle pain? And are they exaggerating or are they really feeling this? So at the clinic, they give them some scans, and then they have a way of explaining what they're feeling. And this guy, he said, in his back, he was feeling the pain you would feel if you were having your arm cut off with a chainsaw. And he said, and they could see it's the exact same level of pain, just by how these neurons were lighting up. So his friends could understand what he was feeling all the time. And he used meditation as a way of coping with this. And I remember him coming. This was in Magnolia's. No, it was not a Mara temple, but before we had the hall, when we were using the old, what's now the community hall. He came to see me with a big smile on his face, and he said, "I've finally done it." What have you done? Made the machine flat. What, you mean the ECG? He said, no, I did that weeks ago. The EEG. He got flat-lined on the two machines, one measuring your heart, the other one measuring your mental activity through the meditation. And I remember he was a very cheeky guy, but it was true. He said, "See all those people in the back of the hall? They're all the doctors and professors from Osborne Park Hospital trying to figure out what's gone on." And so it was amazing when you saw him. And he also told me that legally at that time, I never heard this was possible. I'm not a lawyer. But anyway, that he was allowed to have any drug, heroin, anything, without any possibility of breaking the law, because of his condition was so extreme. So extreme pain. That he was allowed anything. He didn't use the drugs. He used the meditation. I thought it was really cool they could do that. And also that person, the other person I said, Greg, was found by his wife in the bedroom, totally still, not breathing. And the medics picked him up, took him to Charlie Gardner Hospital. And fortunately, that evening, the doctor on duty was Indian descent. His parents came from India. And he'd heard the Indian gurus, through meditation, could suspend their life activities. So he wanted to find out. whether, because he found out from his wife that he'd been meditating, the doctor thought, maybe he is still alive. So decided to do the defibrillators. And the interesting part of that, which the wife told me, throughout the time he was not breathing, he was warm. And that's exactly what they say in the Chudawedala Sutta. The difference between being dead and being in deep meditation, your body is still warm. I don't know how, but that's what it's like. That's what he was experiencing. And that gave him many defibrillators, but all the best machines you could have on him, and he was just flatlining all the time. And it's only when I said, how did you come out of that? And he said, we just decided, end of this meditation. How do you come out of meditation? It's time to come out. So he just opened his eyes. Beep, beep, beep. All those machines were acting perfectly. And his wife was just so happy that he hadn't died. Didn't need to arrange a cremation for him. And the doctor just gave him a full checkup. And this is another thing, if you get into some of those deep meditations, it cures so many of any problems you have in the body. And the doctor could find absolutely nothing wrong with him. A very healthy man. And so allowed him, it was a Sunday, he didn't have any other doctors on duty that morning, and allowed him to walk home. The doctor didn't even send him back in an ambulance. He walked back home, about half an hour. Walking is good exercise, keeps you healthy. If you just had what equivalent to a heart attack or deeper than that, it's very rare a doctor would be able to let you go home walking. And you know the story. I asked him, what was the most unpleasant part of that experience? And what was it? The scolding he got from his wife on the way home. Everything else he was blissing out all the time. And this is actually what happens in those deep meditations. So if you do get into deep meditations, don't tell your partner. And they'll scold you. Oh, I thought you were dead. Okay. Are you still okay if I carry on? I haven't got a clue what the time is. What is the time? Oh, it's still really early. Some constructive feedback. I'm not a huge fan of the silly little stories. I do prefer more direct instructions on the Dharma path with metta. P.S. I'll be happy to co-produce some TikTok videos with you. What are TikTok videos? Sorry? So what are they? Social media thing, okay. Short films, okay. Anyway, that's one of the problems with being a monk. There's some things you learn, but some things I'm totally ignorant of. But anyway, the more direct instructions on the Dhamma path with metta. Those are the stories or the instructions I give in between. The reason I give them in between is because otherwise that people would fall asleep. I remember just one of my friends, he was one of the friends I was at university with, and he was also a theoretical physicist, he was also an astronomer, also a Buddhist, and he eventually became the president of the Psychic Research Society in London. He was also one of probably the inner circle, maybe number 3 or 2 or something, a close friend of Professor Stephen Hawkins. And he got more into theoretical physics, and I went more into Buddhism. We were really good friends, Bernard Carr. And even, I'm not supposed to watch movies, but on the aircraft I was going somewhere, there was a movie about Professor Stephen Hawkins, and Bernard was featured on it. And he said it's the only time in his life he had to go to, I think, Leicester Square in London for the premiere and walk on the red carpet with Stephen Hawkins. So he was a really good friend. And he was telling me all the inner story of what was happening with Stephen Hawkins. And he was a really good Buddhist. We invited him to our conference, Global Conference on Buddhism in Perth here. And I made sure that I couldn't pick him up in the airport because he arrived late, but I went to see him at his hotel early in the morning. I was one of the first persons to welcome him. He's a good mate, a friend. And as we were sitting, I just had a cup of tea, he had the breakfast. And I told him, I said, look, I know, we were friends together at Cambridge. I know all your stories and all the shenanigans you got up to when you were a student. And I know your wife is here. And wife was with him on this trip. And I said, look, I need to talk to you first of all. You know all of my stories, what I got up to when I was a student. And the deal is this: if you don't say anything about me, I won't tell your wife anything. He agreed, thank goodness. Because once he was on the stage, when it was question time, I remember a couple of people put their hand up. Can I ask you a question, Professor Carr? What was Ajahn Brahm like as a student? And I looked at him and reminded him of our deal, and he couldn't say anything. I was pretty good, of course. So was he, kind of. We were students, we were just experimenting. I never took any drugs, though, which was amazing. The reason I didn't take any drugs, one of my best friends was caught with drugs. And at that time, I remember being on a London bus coming home from school. And those Latimer, you say there's boys and girls in Latimer now, they weren't all sort of great kids. Some did get up to so much mischief, like me. But I never took any drugs because one of my friends got caught with some drugs. And he said his life was hell at home now. And at that time, my father was really sick, very close to dying. And I kind of made a vow, there's no way I can kill my father. And if I had taken any drugs and got caught, it would have killed him. So that was the love of a father saved me. And later on in life, it was getting into meditation. Basically, you didn't need drugs. Yes, thank you for learning the Pali language so that you may be aware of what the Buddha was actually saying, so that we may be more aware of what the Buddha was doing, showing. Yes. Sometimes, if you are capable of learning language, then do it. Like Pali, but there's many monks who can't do that. They don't have to. You can always check it out. You lead and guide beautiful meditations on YouTube. Can you please lead and guide us in a meditation here? Yes, I will do that on Sunday. One of the last meditations we do. One of the reasons I decided years ago not to do guided meditations on mornings and afternoons or evenings is that many people just skilled in meditation, they complain that the meditation I teach by guiding you is too slow. They want to keep on going. And they go much deeper very quickly. And some it's too fast. They need more time. I remember this, one of our members, a very good supportive member, really helped out. And he said it's disturbing to hear somebody talk when they're doing their own meditation. And it stops them going deep. So what I usually would advise people, if you like the guided meditations, which we do at a place like Nonamara, and they're all on YouTube, please download them and get a little device and put your earbuds in and play it. So it's not disturbing others, and it's the stuff which you like, so it doesn't interfere with other people's meditation practice. But nevertheless, on the last day I always do, to end the meditation retreat, the loving kindness meditation. That's one which I do. If you want to listen to other guided meditations by me or by other monks, get your favorite ones, download them, and on your device you can play them whenever you want. So that's, because if you play it for everybody, some people like it, some people don't. Ajahn, kindly explain the difference between anapanasati practice and satipatthana practice, in brief. The satipatthana practice, what is the satipatthana practice? The first satipatthana practice, which is mindfulness of the body, begins with mindfulness on the breath, with anapanasati. And in the Anapanasati Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, that's where the Buddha states that anybody who practices anapanasati fulfills satipatthana. And I like quoting that simply because it says they're not that different. By doing satipatthana, like you've heard me tell you, you complete the satipatthana practice at the same time. To try and think they're different is wrong. Be efficient. Anapanasati completes satipatthana. A lot of time, people don't understand what satipatthana is. What is satipatthana? That the meditator, get my memory going. It's just the party. Now what's the party again? Starting off satipatthana? Okay. Anyway, I know one of the most important parts of that is the meditator loke abhijja domanasang. Loke abhijja. It's the time when I get tired. You ask me in the morning, I'll say it straight away. They having, well, in the English translation, having abandoned grief and covetousness for the world. Does that ring any bells for you? How many people have been in Satipatthana retreats? That's people are mindful, say, of their body, having abandoned grief and covetousness for the world. And that is loke abhijja domanasang vipassana. No. What is there nothing about it? Yes? You forgot too. Sorry? Oh, Vinaya, yes. Thank you. Vinaya loke abhijja domanasang. And those words, Vinaya, means having sort of abandoned, having trained, having got rid of. And it's loke abhijja domanasang. Those words are usually translated in the that Vipassana tradition of grief and covetousness for the world. When I first read that, I thought, what the heck does that mean? Grief and covetousness for the world. But then when I learned Pali, and I was advised the best way to learn Pali is to read those suttas in the original Pali. So I did that, I had enough time, I read the whole lot. And in the Anguttara Nikaya, which is one of the sections of suttas, there you saw Loke Abhijja and Domanasang used as the first two of the five hindrances. Loke Abhijja was the alternative form to the word Kamachanda, the first of the hindrances, and Domanasang as the second hindrance. And what it meant was having abandoned the hindrances temporarily, but they're not there when you're doing Satipatthana. And that was really an eye-opener for me. It's not grief and covetousness for the world, which meant nothing to me. It meant having abandoned the five hindrances. And if ever I teach those Satipatthana, I always say, you're mindful of the body, having abandoned the five hindrances. But have you ever seen, I remember when I was a young lay Buddhist, they'd always say, having contemplated the body in the body, the Vedana in the Vedana, the Citta in the Citta, and the mind in the mind, or mind objects in the mind, the Dhammas in the mind. Do you remember that? I remember we used to have great arguments in our Buddhist society. What does it mean, the body in the body? Is that something sort of important? And it's totally unimportant. It's just the idioms. It's just the way that people speak in Pali. And they even say you do, I remember just in the Vinaya, the monks' rules and the nuns' rules, they say you do road sweeping on roads. Where else would you do road sweeping? Except on a road. You do bowl cleaning of your bowl. And these were just examples. All it really meant is your mindfulness of the body. But they always make this verb, you do body awareness on the body. It's just the idiom of that language. But it doesn't mean anything. So when I translated and said, you're aware of your body, people said, oh, you missed something out. No, you haven't. You're not translating properly. And so you do body awareness having abandoned grief and covetousness for the world, knowing the purpose of what you're doing this for. And this is the five hindrances. And the reason I mention that is, how do you abandon, even temporarily, the five hindrances? The sutras always say, the five hindrances disappear, even temporarily, because you've done the jhana. After the jhanas, the five hindrances are absent for long periods of time. Which is why the Buddha said, please do the deep meditations, and then the mind is powerful and clear enough to do the Satipatthana properly. You videoing that, or write it down? Because that's an important part of understanding, what Vipassana really is. Of course you need to have those five hindrances which weaken wisdom and distort things. You need to have them disappeared, even for a short time. Then you can see things clearly. And that's how insight really happens in your life. You get these beautiful meditations, really free, empowered mind. And then you can see, you can hear, you can even touch much more deeply than you've ever done before. The five hindrances have been suppressed. And then you can actually see so much more. That's where insight comes from. That's why the Buddha did the 4 jhanas in Bodh Gaya. And then the Dhammas became clear. Does that make sense to you? Please, you can argue with me about that, because I don't mind arguing about this. This is an important part of Buddhism. There's too many people just think that Satipatthana and Anapanasati are different. and that one is really important, the other one isn't. Okay, I think all this one's been done. Are you still okay to listen to some more questions being answered? Excellent. There's usually only one or two people not there to say yes, and the other ones have to comply. Is that fair? Okay, good smile. Dear Ajahn, relax to the max. Should be the easiest thing in the world. Why isn't it? It's because you don't understand it. How can you relax to the max? Do you know how to relax? You know, sometimes there's one part of my body, when I'm mindful of it, I realize it needs some more relaxation. That's my shoulders. So number one, how do you relax your shoulders? Sometimes I go in the opposite direction first. I scrunch them up as much as I can. And you get to the point of really scrunching them up, and then you let them be free. My shoulders relax deeper than they were when I started. It's that feeling, experiencing the letting go, putting no controls on them, not asking them to be unnatural. Let them just be comfortable. You all know how to do that. So you relax to the max your body first of all. And in those guided meditations I do online, sometimes you learn how to relax your toes even. When I started doing that, I thought, well, what a waste of time. My toes don't need relaxing, and so what anyway? And I found it's wonderful. Now look at my toes. Because you're mindful of them, you get what we call feedback. You ask them to relax, and you see, has that changed anything? Has that done anything? And after a while, you learn how to relax them a lot. Well, this monk, years and years and years ago in Bodhinyana monastery, he had a bad back. And so he even went to the point of getting it, a CT scan done of his back, and they told him it was a congenital defect of the spine. He said, there's no way of fixing that. You just have to endure. And they said the best thing, never sit down and meditate. He said, but I'm a meditator, what else am I going to do? And he got this book by this New Zealand doctor, Treat Your Own Back. And the reason I mention this is because it's brilliant. What this doctor taught him to do, first of all, he took his hand and every morning for about half an hour to rub or just massage a certain part of his back on one side of the spine, and another half an hour massage the opposite side of his spine. And it meant after doing that regularly, that's the nice thing about being a monk, you can arrange your schedule to be able to do that. And then he could start to feel that part of his back. He was making a neural connection between that muscle in his back, which we all have, and even I don't know how it is because it's not important to me. Because so many parts of our body which are there, but we don't know exactly where they are. We haven't made that connection yet. Once he had that neural connection there, the second stage was to see if you can move that muscle. Now try this, try that. The thing is, if you're mindful of that muscle, then you can actually see if it does change. And soon, he didn't know exactly what he was doing, but then the muscle moved. And so he got that connection to be able to move that muscle at will. And once he started to be able to move that muscle, another sort of 3 months or something, to exercise it for half an hour every morning. Move it up, down, up, down, up, down. And soon that muscle became so strong that it compensated for the weakness in his back. There's no more pain. And I kind of like that idea of how we can use mindfulness and the feedback mindfulness gives us to be able to move parts of our body which we haven't made that connection to yet because we don't need to. I remember seeing on TV when I was a young man at home with my mum and dad, this guy would be able to move his stomach up and down. I thought it was gross, but I was watching it, I don't know why. And just he'd do that at will. and part of your body which we've never really learned how to move through the mindfulness. And so this is actually how we can heal things in our body. And this is one of the reasons why one of those healings which I did on myself, the food poisoning story. Are you getting bored of these stories? These aren't little stories, this was amazing. I had food poisoning, I crawled into my cave and I was screaming every minute or two, ah! The stomach would go into spasms. You couldn't help it and it really hurt. Ah! Ah! And so you had a choice of what to do. The telephone was quite a distance away. And so I thought, no, I'm not going to bother with the telephone and ringing for an ambulance. If you were at home and there was or you had your mobile phone, of course you would call an ambulance. It was dangerous and really hurting. And so I decided to meditate. And what was the meditation? I became really mindful of those contractions, in my upper intestines, and also the pain of it. And every time you're mindful, you try to relax to the max, as much as you could. Because you were relaxing, the contractions got less intense, and the pain started getting less intense. It took me half an hour, that's all. And after half an hour, all the contractions stopped. They slowed down little by little each time, until there was no more pain. And then there was no problem. And there was no trouble with my intestines. I never needed to take any medication. You learn how to deal with these difficulties in the body without needing any medication or doctors or painkillers or anything. It was fantastic. And these days, because I've done stuff like that for such a long time, if ever you feel that anything in the body is not balanced, you do this meditation, you're mindful of that area, and you learn the power of going into it rather than trying to escape from it. When you go to the center of it, it's so easy just to give it loving kindness, to really relax, and then the pain, the difficulty stops. Not automatically, but often just it gets a little bit less, and a little bit less, and a little bit less, and a little bit less, until it goes. That's kind of what I do. Dear Ajahn, when do we let the mind be, and when do we know we are indulging? I still get excited by food. He he he. Thank you. Look, if the monks or the nuns asked me that, I would say, okay, just hold off a bit. If you're lay people, goodness, indulge as an act of kindness for yourself. And if you find you're eating too much, then you can indulge less. But sometimes people are far too harsh on themselves. So harsh on themselves, they don't even want to come to a retreat again. I want you to enjoy this retreat. If you eat a bit too much, don't worry. And if you drink a bit too much, don't worry. After a while, you'll find, I don't need to eat so much. I don't need to drink so much. And then you find yourself, your best path. But people are way too harsh on themselves, way too critical. That's what I found. Okay. Dear Ajahn, sometimes when I meditate and come to a place of calmness, the right side of my mind and body fall away to darkness. I followed this darkness by going to its center, and I found a sea of anger and rage. I invited it in, and it made me shake, and then it cleared to light. Is this how we forgive and release? If it works, great. Will it come back again? Quite likely. But then it will come back with less intensity because you'll find a way past it. Maybe another way past it next time. But it worked. Going into it was good. It made you shake. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with shaking. Sometimes when I was young, we loved doing that, rock and roll. Shaking. Did you no harm. So that's brilliant, well done. Dear esteemed Ajahn, why is it that in Buddhist countries the lay devotees are overwhelmingly female? Is that true? No, the male devotees are also, the male devotees are male. That's one of the interesting things, that when there's work to do in the monastery, the men just do most of the building work, females do most of the cooking. But this is Thailand. Still, when it comes to doing retreats, some of the males are great meditators. Some of the females are great meditators. Basically, I can't see any difference between them. But it's usually... I know that this was one of the cases years ago. They say when anybody walks into a monastery alone, the other villagers think, oh, Beresov, that's obviously they've got problems. That's why they go into a monastery. And so they look down upon them for going into a monastery. Like you can go into a HIV clinic. They think, oh, you must be gay. No! People actually work there and do cleaning there and stuff. So, don't judge people because they go to a monastery, or they must be having problems in their life. You've all come into a monastery. And you have problems in your life? How would you answer? Good, bad, who knows? So that's why a lot of people, especially women, feel embarrassed going into a monastery. They think, oh, that's almost admitting that I've got emotional problems. Please never think like that. Ajahn Brahm, you keep telling us to get into nimitta, get into the jhanas. Can you please describe in more detail the steps or process? I need more clarity. Thank you for your awesome talks. You need more information? For the last 8 days. I've been teaching you how to get into jhanas. How do you get into jhanas? Relax to the max. Don't be afraid when these lights come up. Allow yourself to get into them. Never be afraid. Just go into them and eventually they happen naturally. You can't avoid them. Even people who used to go to the Vipassana retreats, sometimes they're told just, to watch the body or something, and then they still experience these lights. These lights come up naturally. They get to a certain stage of peace and calm, and then the beautiful lights, and they're told not to go into the lights. They're told not to go into the jhanas. That's the problem. Don't be a control freak. Let it happen. They're gorgeous. Next question. I am sleeping all the time, except for chanting, breakfast, Dhamma talk, lunch, tea, chanting and Q&A. What is going on? You're not sleeping all the time. You're chanting, breakfast, Dhamma talk, lunch, tea, chanting and Q&A. Why is it the 2 bad bricks in the wall story? When I saw the first wall I laid, there was 2 bad bricks in the wall, I felt terrible about that. And it took a while, I'm doing the story in brief, until someone came along and told me, that's a beautiful wall. Why? Can't you see the 2 bad bricks? I said, yes, but I can also see the 998 beautiful bricks. After a while, you find you're sleeping a lot, you're catching up on your sleep deficit. Well done. And after a while you don't need to sleep anymore, you don't sleep. Then you do more meditation. You come into the meditation sort of rested and relaxed. Well done. Regarding the action of the senior monk of Wat Pah Pong who mixed up the two curries, what could be the reason to do so? Was it possible that he read your mind? That monk, no. You get to know these monks, and the reason I'm not sure, but in the end I'm glad he did, because it taught me the wonderful lesson. I don't know how I could have got that lesson in any other way. I need to be kind of shocked into getting angry and realizing, I knew that for a long time, enlightened beings don't get angry. Dear Ajahn, what is shame? I think that's an overreaction to faults. You've made a mistake. Are you ashamed of it? You know, sometimes when I make a mistake, I like to tell people about it. It's really good fun. What mistake have I made recently? Well, oh, yeah, okay. When I sort of move my leg around, now monks don't wear underpants. I hope you've understood that by now. And so, if you glimpse what's under the robe, am I ashamed of that if that happens? No. I relaxed the monks a long time ago. There's nothing to show off, nothing to be ashamed about. It's part of the human anatomy. What's wrong with that? So instead of being ashamed, I think it's a great way to see if people were mindful. Is that true? Look, one of my mistakes, which I don't know if I've let you know of yet, was the hammer story. Have I told that to you all? No, some are nodding their head. The hammers. It did? Okay, to everybody. Someone has actually forgotten. And I was really trying to be a good monk, a good teacher. Ajahn Brahm had disrobed, and so I decided to go and be a strict teacher. And so I was walking in the forest of Bodhinyana Monastery. I found a hammer going rusty. Someone had left it out instead of putting it away. And I thought it's a good time to tell these monks, who are supposed to be their spiritual dictator, these hammers sometimes are offered by people like you. Just a few dollars here, a few cents there. And a lot of our disciples are not wealthy at all. And I thought you should be more caring of all the people who look after us. Monks don't have their own source of income. They rely on you. So a person here puts $1 in the donation box, somebody else puts another $1, and eventually we have enough money to buy a hammer. And some stupid monk, careless, not mindful, had left his hammer out in the forest to get rusty. So I called a meeting. And at that meeting, I've changed a lot in all the years I've been here. I was really fierce. You silly monks, imagine what you're doing. If people found out that their offerings were treated like this, they would never give any offerings ever again. People give this because they've got faith in you, they'll lose their faith in you. Terrible thing you've done. I went much worse than that for an hour almost, or 45 minutes. And by the time I was finished, I looked at the monks I was speaking to. They weren't sitting relaxed like you are now. They were all dead straight. No back was bent, and their hands were like they were in deep meditation, and their face, their eyes were closed, and you could see that they'd really taken that seriously. And then, which one of it was you? I asked that question. Not one of them confessed. Not one of them. And I was kind of disappointed. I said, look, I know I was quite fierce, but please let me know. None of them confessed at all. And that really made me disappointed. I thought I'd blasted them, criticized them, made them feel ashamed too much. They wouldn't confess. Even now, sometimes things go wrong in monastery. Who did it? Please confess. And no one does. And I thought, oh my goodness. At least if people were honest, it would make me feel a bit uplifted. But then when I walked out of the hall, it was only when I got outside of the hall, it suddenly occurred to me the identity of the person who left the hammer out. It was me. It was. I'd forgotten totally about it. I meant to put it away. But why is it that you tell everybody else off and you're looking at other people to find the culprit and you find out it's yourself? So I went straight back in the hall. I said, I've got something to confess to you all. It was me. And all the monks actually laughed. So I didn't feel ashamed. I'd made a mistake. What's wrong with making a mistake? If you feel ashamed, you won't admit it anymore. But if you admit it and let people know, then that can help you do better next time. When we hide our mistakes out of shame, then actually we never grow. We never learn. So please tell your partner the worst mistake you ever made. Tell them. Can you? I did this to this lady. I was giving her some counselling close to her death. And that's one of the things I asked her once over in Nolamara Temple. And she said, what's the worst thing you've ever done? And she said, I can't tell you. She was ashamed. No, come on, you can tell me. Be careful telling me anything, because I told her I will never let anybody else know. I've let thousands of people know. She's passed away now, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think she'll be upset at me. And she said, really embarrassed and ashamed, she said, when I was young, I kissed somebody else's husband. And I looked at her, and she was like dreading a thunderbolt coming from the sky or something. Is that the worst you've done in all of these years of your life? Yes, she said. That's pretty good. Only one bad brick in the wall. If that's the worst thing you've ever done in your whole life, do you agree with me that's a pretty good life you've led? When I said that, it made her feel so much more at ease. The worst pain of that experience was hiding it. And once she admitted it, it was like a great release for her. She felt so much more peaceful and happy. That's why shame, suddenly it stops you confessing, opening up, finding out what you've done, and lessening its intensity. If you're ashamed and you don't tell anybody, you always amplify it. To you it seems the worst thing in the world you've ever done. There's a guy over in Carnet Prison Farm, and he read my book about the two, including the two bad bricks in the wall. I usually don't go to Carnet Prison Farm anymore these days, but you go there, don't you, was he? No? Do you go there, Siddhiputta? No. Oh yeah. But anyway, there's one guy in there, and he's in there for murder. And apparently after he read my book, he was going around telling all the other visitors and the monks, it was only 2 murders, only 2 bad bricks in the wall. And that's what he's saying apparently. And I'm very happy and inspired by that. He's not a murderer. He's done 2 murders. They're so different. If he thought he was a bad person, when he was released, he'd probably do it again, because that's who he was. I'm a murderer. When he realized it was just 2 bad bricks in the wall, he doesn't need to do it again. Understand? Excellent. Okay. I don't know what the time is, if I've gone over time or under time or in time. What is the time? That's not bad. Okay, and that's all the questions answered. Yay! I hope. They got a bit mixed up, but that's good enough. Thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent. Okay? Okay, very good. Yep. Where's one of the caretakers? Okay. Who's supposed to be taking care of me? Oh, working again. Okay. Ooh.